being president or CEO was never that was never an ambition for me. I just wanted to create something that would be valuable, that would create some kind of positive impact in the world in some way. And it was at a time when it wasn't very back in the mid 90s. Companies were still going pretty hard. They were still like, it was not easy working at a lot of companies. It wasn't like it is now. We felt like we were the anti-company because we were treating our staff with respect. We were giving people the benefit of the doubt. We were taking our time and being available for them so that they could be successful.
Jason, I'm so excited to talk to you today. Jason Schuy is an entrepreneur, a very, very, very successful Canadian entrepreneur who started his own company. Literally 20 years. He was in it for 20 years. So he started, I believe, in 1998. It was called Oral Systems. They were selling safety and all kinds of related software and technology for hospitals. At the time of exit, they had 2,000 plus hospitals as clients. Jason is one of the co-founders, and the one thing that always stands out is such a kind, awesome person to be around. He's always giving, always helpful. So Jason, I'm super excited to have you today. How are you?
Thanks, Naren. Yeah, I'm definitely thankful to be here. Thank you. And doing well, doing well. It's life is good. It's been a journey, through starting up a company and living through the ups and downs of it, as well as post exit and the trouble that I'm still getting into.
So maybe I'll start this conversation by talking about some inflection points, like how did you get started and a few inflection points. And then maybe we'll dive deep into certain aspects of the business, like sales and management team and so forth. So tell us the founding story. Like, how did this happen? Like, did you have this master plan that you always wanted, or tell us how this
Sure,
whole thing
sure.
started?
Well, it's interesting. I think for both Sanjay and I, Sanjay Malavia, who was my partner in that, we both had kind of an entrepreneurial spirit. We were friends from university days, and he had ended up working at St. Michael's Hospital in project management and IT. And he and his team were responsible for building this product for managing complaints and compliments and suggestions for the patient relations group at St. Michael's Hospital in Toronto. And they had created this concept because they were enabling something called decentralized complaint management. So in a hospital, instead of having to go to a different department for you to give your complaint, that you could literally tell the nurse or the manager in the department or the unit, what your complaint is, and they could just document it in the system. So they called it decentralized complaint management. It was a concept that they had developed there. They had promoted it, and they had promoted it at the College of Healthcare Executive in the U.S., the American College, and the response that they had from it, from other hospitals saying, what do you use for this? How do you enable it? Was pretty profound. And so they went back to Toronto, and of course, being a hospital, they really didn't do much from there. And what happened was, I guess, to prove it, and there was a gentleman from Caraway Methodist Medical Hospital in Alabama. He was Dr. Caraway himself, and it was his family's hospital, and he was driven to want to get this program up and running in his facility. And so he would badger Sanjay at the hospital, who was a hospital employee, until eventually Sanjay's like, okay, we'll have to work something out. And so and that's pretty much as far as it went. Now there, the other people that were involved from St. Mike's, they had a desire potentially to go into it, but in the end they decided that it wasn't for them. And so actually over a poker game, with Sanjay at a guy's poker game. He handed me the system discs, 3.5 inch floppies, and said, "Jay, what do you think of this? Maybe we should get something going." And that's kind of how it started.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
So Sanjay, what was his background? Was he, you said he was a project manager. So he was a programmer or more of a project manager?
He was more of a project. He was in more of a project manager role. He went to University of Waterloo. He got his PEng from there in computer engineering, I believe. And so that's what he was accustomed to, was that end of things.
And
And
what was your background when you first decided to start the company?
So my background was I graduated from University of Toronto in business, and so that was always a focus, especially on the sales and marketing end of things. It seemed to be something that I excelled at, and so I worked for software companies, a small software company called Alumni Computer Group, legal accounting software. And then I went to CompuGen, which was more of a systems integrator for large implementations. And then I went to work at Novell for networking software, which is a much larger company. So that was really the thing. And I always loved computers and technology. It always was something that I was into, and just thought, that's my passion. And so when Sanjay and I were talking about it, we had more meetings about it, and just humming and hawing. And whether or not it was coming from Novell, looking at this, it was really like a database system. It wasn't anything like too major to write home about, but I just thought, it's a start. You got to start somewhere, and it's amazing where things can go just from something so simple. So I think that's one of the things that I mentioned to a lot of young founders is, don't let perfect get in the way of good.
Mhm.
So whether it's the product, whether it's the industry, the main thing is to start. Just start and see where it goes, and have the faith to stick with it, during the good times and the not so good times, and see, and hopefully, knock on wood, it'll go in the right direction.
That's awesome. Now let me fast
There were
forward.
definitely times. There were definitely times when it did not, then when there were moments of truth, right? And I'm sure you can
Yes.
recall those too in your history as an entrepreneur, where I remember there was one time where we were down to our last $5,000 in our credit line, and although Sanjay,
When was this? How many years into the journey?
this was probably a couple of years into it,
Okay.
and maybe three, no, two. We still weren't paying ourselves. So Sanjay, Carey actually as well, our CFO, and I made this agreement that we would not pay ourselves unless we pay each other the same amount.
Right.
So it was this thing. So when it came to our staff, they definitely had to get paid. But when it came to us, we said, okay, we'll do whatever it takes. And
That's
so
nice.
I remember there was this one time where we were down to 5,000 in our credit line, and payroll was coming up, and I called everybody and anybody, because at that time I was the sales guy. So I was calling anybody and everybody that we had as leads, that were in that pipeline, that were ready to sign on the dotted line. And I remember one day I literally had exhausted everything. I was working from home at the time, and I literally just sat back in my chair and just thought, all right, well, I can't do anything more. If this flies, it flies. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Thankfully, we got a check from a big hospital the next day
That's awesome.
to literally save our caboose.
So
Forget it.
let's fast forward, Jason, to the exit, right? Because then we'll go back into certain inflection points and talk more about it. So this was in 2018, 20 years into the journey. You were 250 people, full-time staff. One of the largest exits at the time in Canada, hundreds of millions of dollars. It was kind of a merger slash acquisition. So they acquired and they merged it. And so describe to us both the feeling and also some of the things you did to kind of create that situation for yourself?
Boy, um, there were so many moving pieces that went along with something of that magnitude. There were so many parties involved, that it's, I can talk from me personally, but it was interesting because our management team. The interesting thing is, over all that time, our management team, the core of the management team, stayed the same the entire time. Nobody had left. Nobody was disenchanted and wanted to do something else. We were having a lot of fun, and up until that time, RL just wasn't for sale. We kept saying that. We were incredibly, well capitalized. We weren't really worrying about where the money was coming from. We had a good war chest. Everything was going well. We had a cult of clients. We were having fun. And but as time goes by, people get older, and so all of us were starting to get into our 50s. And of course, being the way it is with private equity and venture capital, people, when they see something good, if they can participate in it, it could be a really good thing. And so, we've of course, we were courted over the years from a variety of different organizations, and never really took them up on it because we weren't for sale. We were just having fun. So what happened was, an organization came to us and said, we want to do this. And at the time, it was Five Arrows Associates, which was the private equity arm of the Rothschilds family. And they wanted to, they had a very big, grand vision of where things could go as far as being a globally dominant player. And in a lot of ways, it was very exciting to think that way, because we always thought we want to be $1 billion company. We have what it takes to do that. Let's drive ahead. And so, as part of we had an employee shared ownership program. And so as part of that, we had to value our company every year. We had to go through the process. And how somebody participated was, we never gifted shares to anybody. They had to purchase the shares based on market value every year. And we had a little mini market, so people could even buy and sell shares if they wanted to. So it was a real thriving kind of thing that I know a lot of people look forward to every year. It's a certain amount of excitement on both sides. And so, when we looked at it, we were a certain value at that point. And at least from our calculations, and we're just like, what'll it take to get to $1 billion company? And so we basically asked the team, because we said, we have an opportunity to to lock in with some other partners and drive this thing forward, not so organically, or we could do it ourselves. What do you guys think? And the management team was incredibly positive and charged up and fired up, saying, yes, we want to do this. We want to do it ourselves. Because one of the challenges we were having was moving from from the system we had, which was well received and incredibly configurable, powerful, but it was a mixture of client server and web-based technology. And to move that to the cloud is, it would take re-engineering what we were doing. So we had a meeting of it in January of 2017. And then we basically said that, you guys want to do this? Fine. We're going to give you a year to get things going. And so during that year, everybody was plowing away in the ways that they do from a development perspective, from a product management perspective, to try and deal, because a lot of the challenge wasn't building the new software, it was legacy. How do we
Move the clients.
how do we convert over all our 2,000 clients to our new platform. And if it's not at least as good as our current system, we'll have a lot of unhappy clients for sure. Ethically, we just couldn't do it. So we had a year to not only come up with a plan and start to develop a new platform, but as well come up with a strategy and what it will take to convert all of those clients to the new platform. And so a year came by, we had our management retreat, and literally not much had changed at all. So it was challenging. It was it was what it was. We gave an opportunity to the team, and we just decided after that looking at the actions and the words not totally hitting the mark, we just thought maybe it's a better option to take option 2.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's when we started really moving forward with an acquisition merger.
That's awesome. Jason, I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions just to mix it up. You sold to hospitals. What are 3 things, and you were very involved on the sales side, right? What are 3 things you would tell somebody who's interested selling to hospitals?
Tell somebody as far, oh, you mean
A company, a
if
CEO
somebody's
of a
going
company.
in, an
Yes,
entrepreneur
exactly.
going into the healthcare field?
Yes, yes.
I would tell them, I would tell them, first of all, be patient. Hospitals move extremely slowly.
Right.
I would tell them that hospitals also look to other hospitals as an incredible influence. So if you're nowhere, that will make it very difficult for you. So so that's the other one. So for example, be patient would be, sales cycle typically for us was 6 months to a year.
Mm.
That's the sales cycle. That's and it could be even longer than that. So if you're looking for something that's really quick and you can do on a quarterly basis, healthcare is a challenging one to do that in. When it comes to influence, one of the things that we did right from the onset, because we recognize that hospitals are very influenced by their peers, was to have something called a what do we call it? Innovator Partnership Program. So it was something where we had an agreement with that client. So these are especially for new entrepreneurs that might have something that they're coming out and they're looking to get on some proof of concepts or some initial sales. What we did was we recognized that it's a huge discount that you have to give somebody, because they're taking a risk just in using you as part of their operations. But the benefit in having them on as a testimonial, as a reference site, is invaluable. They will be your best salesperson, because they are ethical, they have no vested interest, and I guess it's typical buying behavior. You go where if the crowd's going into it, you're not the only one that's going to look like an idiot if it doesn't work, right? So as part of this innovator partnership program, as an example, they would have to agree to be part of a case study.
Right.
They would have to agree to take X number of reference calls per month. And there might be some other things that go along with that for our benefit, but then on the other end, we would give them a significant discount and make sure that they are successful.
Right.
And that program worked incredibly well for us. As we grew, it just grew more. As long it put the heat under our butts, though, because we had to make sure that we fulfilled well.
Right. And so did you pick and choose who got it, depending on how did you so I assume that you had this program for a long time, not just when you were brand new.
Yeah. This was the thing. So there are, similar to celebrity endorsements, You
Hmm.
want to go with people that are really well known.
Mm.
So there's the
Like
U.S.
the
News
Mayo
and
Clinic or the clip,
that's
big name.
exactly.
Yeah.
So like U.S. News and World Reports comes out with their honor roll hospitals every year.
Mm.
These are the top hospitals in the United States. So everyone knows those hospitals. Those hospitals are just known. So, like you said, Mayo, Johns Hopkins, Cleveland Clinic, UCLA, there's just a variety of organizations that typically wind up in that honor roll, and they are organizations that have a culture of excellence. And if you ever get a chance to go to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, you should take that chance because you think Mayo Clinic, oh, it's a clinic. How big
Mm.
could that be? And then, I remember going to Mayo because they became a client of ours. And I go into Rochester, and basically the entire city of Rochester is Mayo. There's over 50,000 employees in one site. It's
Right.
massive, massive, just incredible. So having those people on literally has probably made us millions of dollars and lowered our sales cycle and probably lowered our sales costs overall because once we say, oh yeah, Mayo Clinic's using this or Cleveland Clinic's using it, well, you know,
Sale is done.
they could take that then and they can go to the executive
Hmm.
and say, why aren't we moving forward with this? But I can tell you that a lot of our sales were not just going to the CEO. A lot of our sales were grassroots, like going to the people that will use it, because these are typically the people that will be your internal champions in a healthcare organization, because it is very institutional based.
Right. Let
So
me let me um, let me ask you the same question. You built a management team right from the start, and you feel that was one of the reasons you succeeded, and you kept growing at a pretty rapid rate for like 20 years without outside funding, all bootstrapped right from day one. Um,
superstars, all of them. Yeah.
right. So tell me two things. Looking back, what are some of the benefits you got from that strong management from team from early on? And then what would you tell that founder CEO who's trying to emulate what you did in terms of building that strong management team?
Boy, it's funny because uh, there is a certain amount of luck that goes into being an entrepreneur, as you're probably familiar with over time as well.
Yes.
So I wish I could say it with total certainty, because just out of humility, I don't want to say it with too much conviction, because you could try these things and they could totally blow up in your face anyway. However, that being said, if you hire people that you like spending time with, that show you from different ways that they are exceptional at what they do, and that they are willing to take it for the team, and that in some way, shape, or form they exude that, or they have examples that they can cite to you on that, that goes a long way. That goes a long way.
Hmm.
Because our culture was very close. We had a very close culture. We were all really good friends. We still keep in touch regularly, maybe not as regularly as we want to, but we're still keeping in touch and meeting and going for dinners and drinks and stuff, and talking about the old days, and still even talking. Okay, we had such a great experience. What about starting something up new? Right? The old dangerous conversation.
I'm sure your
And
spouses may not like that
yeah,
conversation.
exactly. I don't tell Paulette that very much. But what we found was, over time, especially when the going gets tough, you need people like that you can trust.
Hmm.
People that have your back, people that will, work. Like we had one opportunity to do one for an entire province in Canada, province of British Columbia. It was like a 15 to $20 million deal. It was a big deal. And it was down to us and our competitor, who we ended up merging with eventually. So the name of our company was RL Solutions. Theirs was Datix, and we eventually, when the acquisition merger happened, we merged into RL
So
Datix.
who got the deal? You or the competitor?
So this was the challenge, was that it was during the time that we were still developing our web version.
Oh, okay. So they got it.
And so even though they wanted to go with us,
Okay.
um, it didn't work that way. But as part of that, literally everybody on the management team was involved in that opportunity. We all went out to Vancouver. We all met with the team that was responsible for it. It was a 2-day gruel to know everything and anything about the software. And so everybody had to be on. So having anybody that would complain and wouldn't be up till like 3 in the morning if needed, or all night if needed, just didn't work for our culture. Our culture, although it was very compassionate, and we do anything for our staff, there was this expectation of excellence. That's one thing that we expected. If you needed to to stay in for the entire thing, you're going to stay in, and you're not going to give us a hassle about it.
Right.
Um, each person on the management team had shown that time and time again. And the thing is, some people on the management team didn't start as the management team. Cheryl Moran, who was our first, like she literally started. She was one of the first. She was one of the first 5 in the company, and her job was to go out and do implementations and training. And she eventually, as we grew, she became VP of Client Success, and she drove that organization to become a incredibly successful cult engine. Our clients were fanatical about RM, fanatical, and not in in large part because of the efforts of her and her team. Len Giorgio, who is he started out as our senior sales guy. Over a 3 or 4 year time period, he just kept bringing in deal upon deal, and they just kept getting bigger and bigger. And he was just a person that was larger than life and lived it. And he eventually became our VP of sales, and just started to drive this this boat forward when it came to revenue generation and building a successful sales process, sales organization. So it's amazing. And even with Kerry Levine, who was our CFO, originally he started as a contract position to help us clean up our books. And eventually, he just showed that he was so interested in what we were doing. He's so keen and committed that these are the kinds of things that it's hard to say whether we chose them or whether life just made these things possible at these points in time where the organization needed somebody like them in that role to elevate the company to that next level. We even had that with clients. We had that with staff. We had that with clients. It's amazing at the right time that somebody showed themselves, and it became obvious that that person, deserved to be in that role. Didn't
Thank
always
you.
work that way. We did bring in people that didn't totally work out, so I don't want it
Right.
to seem like it was total destiny. But thankfully, the core group. Mike Etzinger was another one that was in the mix there, and Jan Zhao, who was our chief technology officer right from day one. All of us were just a family. We were all brothers and sisters. Like, that's how close we were.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So looking back, in building a management team, so what I got out of this is like hire people who are really committed to the vision and who will do whatever it takes, right? And who will have each other's back and do it slowly. So don't just rush into it. But at the same time, have the foresight to, hire them even when you are like tiny, or like start thinking about the management team even early in the journey, right? Is that correct?
Yes. There were times where we brought in people, and financially did it make sense to, no, but it just seemed like this person was so exceptional that we couldn't say no. Um,
Right.
yeah, yeah.
What are some of the mistakes you made? Or you would, I mean, again, the same question. You're
Yeah,
talking to
yeah.
a CEO founder. What would you tell them? Like things, you would tell them knowing what you know.
Mistakes. Yeah, well, there definitely were a lot of mistakes that we made along the way. One that actually really, so we, being a global company, we had an office in Adelaide, Australia. We had clients in Australia. They were very happy. We were starting to build the seeds to try and move into that market a lot more dominantly. And we had what it took to do that. We had a really good reputation over there. And the way that it works in Australia is a little different because here you can go to each hospital or health system and you can make a deal. In Australia, it was very much state driven. So the state would do it. You wouldn't have too many individual hospitals that you'd be able to go to. You'd actually have to go through the government for that. So we've won deals like that before, like the entire country of Denmark rolled out our system across the entire country. And it was cool. It makes it a lot easier. It's a big deal. So it's worth spending the time. So what we were doing, Australia was just moving to this way of doing it. This is how it is today. Back then, it was still a little bit Wild West. So hospitals still had their own budget and they can go ahead with something. And so we were gaining ground. And what happened was we had a reseller down there that was working for us. So they were the ones that were making the deals happen. And we went over their performance. It was coming up to their milestone. It was a 5-year milestone they had. And we recognized that, you know what, they just weren't performing at the level that we wanted them to. So we were going to close off that relationship and take it on ourselves. And so we ended up doing that. But as part of the strategy on that, it's kind of like, okay, well, how do we support our clients down there? So we had to hire people that were down there. So we hired a couple of people from the reseller that it was kosher. They both agreed that it was okay to support. And then it was kind of like, okay, well, now instead of this reseller charging for support, we have to go in and charge for support. Well, our support in North America was significantly higher than our support in Australia. And so the management team had a lot of discussions on what are we going to do here, because there was some on the management team that were saying we should push hard. Let's get it up to levels that we would have here in North America. And others who will remain nameless, no, I'm not saying me, but others had said, you know what, that we're probably gonna really disenchant our clients that are down there. And so we ended up basically doubling their support costs overnight. And after you implement a system like ours that's organizational wide, it's sticky. You can't just get rid of it. So when a vendor does that, it says something. And it basically disenchanted almost every single client we had in Australia. And so even though we had clients that were still there, our reputation was not the greatest. And right at that time is when they were going out to statewide reporting systems, when they were having these. And so literally we were getting involved and they'd be like, oh, RL Solutions. And the word spread. And I have to say that was probably one of the biggest mistakes that we made.
Meaning
That-
they're like terminating that relationship with the vendor, the reseller.
I think that was part of it because they really weren't doing that bad a job. They weren't living up to what was in the agreement. But
Right.
if we were to not just take that, but also just look at the overall view of it, I think the other part was we definitely we could have done more with that, and we didn't. But the other thing is just when you have clients that are reliant on you, and you have an opportunity to profit at their expense, you're going to lose. They
Right.
will not allow you to win because you're not helping them to win.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that is one example where we did that. And I can tell you that those folks that brought up that before learned a valuable lesson from that experience. That's for sure. That was painful. That was very painful for all of us.
Thank you, Jason. Now let's switch gears to post-exit, right? Tell us a little bit about what have you been up to since 2018, since you sold the business. I
Sure.
know you still own shares in the new business, but you exited, or at least somewhat exited.
Yeah, and having liquidity for the first time, because we never really took any money out of the company the entire time. I think we only started paying out dividends 15 years in.
Oh, wow. But you
So
were getting
we,
paid a salary after the first few years?
yeah, yeah, but even
Okay.
that was, we
Minimal.
knew that our value came in our shares,
Right.
or potential dividends down the road, but we were incredibly conservative. So it was nice to get to a point where I had some liquidity. So there were definitely things that I wanted to do, like, from a philanthropic perspective. We had a private foundation for initiatives when it came to things like, conservation efforts, and climate related kinds of efforts. Um, we actually created a charitable organization called Beaches Sandbox in the beaches in Toronto. It's a community center that does community programs for children, seniors, people with special needs. Also, being an angel investor was one of them. I had signed up for 3 angel investing networks and realized that was probably way too much. I think I've heard from a number of entrepreneurs that had exits. Take a year off before you start things. That not kind of how I worked. So getting involved in other early stage companies, um, and also spending time with the family.
Right. Um, that's awesome. Thank you, Jason. I really, really appreciate our time today. I really appreciate your journey. And the last question I want to ask before I wrap up is, I've met lots of entrepreneurs. Many of them are friends, including you. You are different. I think you
Oh.
are like it's just very unique. I'm not saying others are not different,
Is
but
that a backhanded compliment, Narayan?
it is a compliment. And you're different in the sense that I don't know. I think you're so kind and you bring the best in people. So I don't know if there's a formula that other founders who have big dreams, who want to do something over 20 years want, because usually you don't need it if you're exiting in 3 months or 3 years. But
Hmm.
for a 20-year journey, like who you are as a person, whether it was God's gift or you figured it out as you grew older,
Yeah.
whatever it is, right? I think would be a good advantage. So what are some of the things you as a leader, you are kind of like a person who's not like, I'm the big shot, listen to me, like you're just the
Yeah.
opposite. So tell me a few things that, hopefully some of us type A, drive. I'm not saying you don't drive, but I'm just saying, like people can learn from to kind of mold our complete package. Like what are some of the things,
Yeah.
what are some of the suggestions you would make, especially for CEO founders or leader
I
founders,
would,
any kind of leadership role?
from day one, there were a couple of things. So I always had as my vision, for personally for our company, that it would be a stepping stone for everyone involved so that they could reach their dreams.
Mm,
I would say that often, and I meant it. I thought for everybody, I just want it to be worthwhile in some way in their journey in life. So that's one. Second is work yourself out of a job. That every single day. That was always my job. That was always my drive, was to work myself out of a job, regardless of what I had. If I could work with somebody else that could take that on and learn it, that had a desire to learn it, or had a desire to take it on and run it, and could be successful at it, or was really driven, work yourself out of a job. That from day one, that was another thing that I did, and that's why, being president or CEO was never that was never an ambition for me. I just wanted to create something that would be valuable, that would create some kind of positive impact in the world in some way. And it was at a time when it wasn't very back in the mid 90s. Companies were still going pretty hard. They were still like, it was not easy working at a lot of companies. It wasn't like it is now. We felt like we were the anti-company because we were treating our staff with respect. We were giving people the benefit of the doubt. We were taking our time and being available for them so that they could be successful. A lot of times, a lot of other companies during that time, I'm sure you can remember, it was, what do you do? What did you do for me lately?
Yeah.
So, we built an English pub in our office on the 23rd floor of the Toronto Star building. That was not something that was financially, justifiable in a lot of, quantitative ways. And our CFO, Carrie Levine, was always happy to remind us of that all the time. But the funny thing is I remember 10 years after we had that, Carrie came up to us and said, you know what? Now I understand why you guys put the pub in here. Because it was an investment in our people. It was an investment in our culture. It was the way that we wanted things to go. That pub said friendship.
Right.
Yeah. So not to say that you have to be friends with all your employees and stuff like that. You do have things to do, but as best possible, have fun. Have fun along the way.
Thank you so much, Jason. I really enjoyed our time together. And, I know a lot of listeners who are young, uh, you know, halfway through their race or marathon, and of course, later in their journey would get a lot of value from this conversation. So I really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.